that need to be happening in special ed, in general ed, elementary, middle school, and high school. If you just went after this list, it would make a significant difference. So I want you to look down at your list, and from your position as a coach or an administrator or as a teacher, I want you to star the two that you think, my school's really good at this, my teachers are great at this, I'm really good at this. Star two, and circle two that could be focused on to improve. So a little time of reflection, 2 stars, 2 circles. In total silence, reflection. Okay, take a moment and first 1s and 2s, sharing with your partner, and go. That has a very high effect size is direct and explicit instruction, and that sort of is my field, and so I'm often asked what is explicit instruction, and it's simply very systematic instruction that looks at the design of instruction, but also the the delivery. So the sessions I'm giving after this, one is on delivery, particularly active participation, and one is on design, and that is tomorrow. But I'm often asked today, in fact, the most common question I'm asked is, should we not be doing more discovery learning, where the students would discover it? And we often treat these explicit instruction and discovery as 2 separate camps, sort of like Democrats and Republicans in your own state that will never meet. And so instead, we should view it as a continuum, because it is a continuum totally based on what you're teaching and who are your students. And so it's useful for us to remember this. For example, it appears that explicit instruction is particularly important when the students have little or no background knowledge. Then they have nothing to connect it to, and they're going to profit from it being taught fairly directly, fairly explicitly. And that could go across all ages. Raise your hand if you are elementary. Okay? So in elementary schools at the beginning, let's say kindergarten, is it possible that some students do not know letter sound associations going into kindergarten? Is that possible? Yes. And so, and it's so critical, we can't just have them discover it, because there's always 2 possibilities in discovery. You discover it or not, and it's too critical. So we would teach it very explicitly. But last year, when I was teaching those polynomials, is it possible that not all students would have a lot of background on what a polynomial is? Is that possible, yes or no? Yes. And some of you are hoping that I'm not going to teach it to you. I can see it in your eyes, except the math teacher is very excited that I mentioned polynomials. But I was teaching information on last year and juniors on LBJ. Lyndon Baines Johnson, and his view of the Great Society. Well, is it possible that some juniors are not highly familiar with LBJ. Is that possible? Yes, okay, and so some explicit instruction even there made a difference. Now, we also know that the history of the child makes a difference. That if the child is one who's had difficulty obtaining math or difficulty obtaining writing or difficulty obtaining reading, that they profit from very explicit instruction to set them up for success. And raise your hand if you happen to work in special ed or intervention. Raise your hand if that is your role. Because I've met some of you, and so you would know this. For example, in special ed, there's not one research-validated program in special ed that uses discovery. I mean, if they could discover, they would not have met the director of special ed. So my work here for these 2 days is going to focus on this. Even when we look at structured discovery, they have added other aspects that would be quite explicit, such as worked problems, demonstration, explanations. So now, let's look at our time here. Fine. So when we look at the research on instruction, check your partner, see if they're on slide number 12. Good job. See, little things make a difference. I constantly, when I'm teaching, will say, check your partner. And the reason is, I don't have to name. I let the partner name. And so I don't have to say, and so it's such a good thing. All right, so when we look at the research, when I say we, the person I wrote the book on explicit instruction with, Charles Hughes, is at Penn State. And we look at the research on instruction, and we ask this question on a daily basis: what does a value-added teachers do within a lesson that makes a difference? From it, we plucked out things in terms of design, which I'm going to look at tomorrow, and things in terms of delivery. In terms of design, the teachers who made the most difference had lessons that were organized and what, everyone? Focused. So much so you could walk in and say, this second grade teacher is teaching students how to figure out the meaning of words using context clues. This 8th grade teacher is teaching 2-column Cornell notes so the students could take notes on what they read or what they learned. This high school teacher is teaching the students. And so you just walk in and immediately you can know what is taught. And they also tell the students. So as we saw in Hattie's work, telling the students the what, everyone? The goal was very useful. And that those teachers that made more difference also had a review. But this one is critical. And I'm going to, where is Holly? Holly, I might run over a few minutes. Okay, we'll transition faster, okay? So, this one is really critical because it appeared that those teachers would have some review of and necessary background knowledge, next prior skills, beforehand, what they taught yesterday, but it's the way in which we do review that makes a difference. So one day I am sitting in the back of a 7th grade class, social studies. Do you have anybody who teaches middle school social studies here? I can't believe that because, you know, anyway. Okay, we'll go with it anyway. So, the teacher did this review. So be my students looking up here. So students, last week we started our real examination of the structure of our federal government. And as we learned about it, we learned that there were 3 branches: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial branch. But we dove into the legislative branch last week. Now, when we looked at the legislative branch, we learned that there were 2 parts to it: the Senate and the House of Representatives. And we learned that one is often called the upper chamber, the Senate, and the lower chamber, the House of Representatives. And what we learned is that they are meant to work together, though they often don't, but they're meant to work together, particularly in passing laws, but also in terms of figuring out how tax revenues will be spent in terms of the budget. And you remember that. And then we looked at the House of Representatives, and we learned that the House of Representatives has 435 members. And they come from all states, and the number from each state is totally dependent on the population, not the amount of land, but the population. For example, the state that has the most representatives is California with 54, but there are some states like Wyoming that only has 1. Then we look at the Senate, and how you remember this, I'm sure. Now in the House of Representatives, the representatives only serve for 2 years. Then they have to go up for a re-election. Then we went to the Senate, the upper chamber. They're meant to be more stable and working better in terms of Democrats and Republicans. Again, that may not always happen. And we learned that in the Senate, the senators have 2 from each state. Wyoming gets 2. California gets 2. It doesn't matter about their population. Each state has 2. That's a total of 100. And they serve for 6 years. Okay, that is the most common type of review, the recap review. But is it possible that some students went into deep cognitive floating? Yes or no? Because some of you did. But let's just look at it in terms of what it should look like. Okay, looking up here. Welcome back on this Monday. Now we're going to continue our exploration of the executive branch. And last week we learned, the federal government, we learned that the federal government has 3 branches. We saw a tree that showed all 3 sort of equal weight and ones. Turn to your partner and you're going to tell them the 3 branches and start by saying the 3 branches of the federal government are. Use a sentence starter and go. One to tell your partner. Hey, science. So, the president is in which branch, everyone? The executive. And the Supreme Court is part of the judicial. And the Senate and the House is part of the legislative. So last week we worked on the legislative branch, which we're going to wrap up today, and then we're going to move on. And so we learned that there were 2 parts of the legislative branch. 2 is you're going to tell your partner and start by saying the 2 parts of the legislative branch are. Go. Okay, call silence. And you said that they were the House of Representatives and the Senate. So let's look at the House of Representatives. But first, together, they have 2 major missions. So think of the 2 major things that together the legislative branch, the House and the Senate are meant to do together. Thinking. And as you think about that, put your hand facing you, put up 1 finger for each part. As you say it, it increases the probability they'll think about it. Okay, and 1, tell your partner. What are the 2 major jobs or missions of the legislative branch, the House and the Senate together, and go. Hey, eyes up here. So 1 was to pass what, everyone? Laws. And the other was to determine how tax revenue would be spent to determine the federal budget. Excellent. Then we look at the House of what, everyone? Representatives. And whisper to your partner the number of representatives in the House of Representatives. Okay, looking up here. Everyone, how many? 435, with enthusiasm. 435, okay? And is the number from each state determined by amount of land, don't say it yet, or population? Land or population, everyone? Population. And on your lap, you're going to form the number of years they serve before they go up for re-election. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Form it on your lap. High in the air, show me. And how many, everyone? 2. Then we went to the Senate, and on your lap form the number of senators from each state. Don't say it. I'm watching you. Okay, thank you. High in the air. How many, everyone? 2. And form on your lap the number of years they served before going up for re-election. High in the air. How many, everyone? 6. There is a huge difference between those two. If you did nothing else but do that kind of comparison with your staff, because the first one is the most common. It is just the recap review. The other is interactive and requiring retrieval practice. Requiring what, everyone? Retrieval practice. Yes, with your hand movements, everybody. Retrieval practice. Only retrieval practice is digging deep neural pathways that lead to retention. And so, right there was something that many teachers do. We could take it up a notch and make it really likely to make a difference in terms of learning. Well, what else would we want to see in terms of the actual design? Good job turning your page. And one is, if I'm introducing a new skill or strategy, those teachers that made the most difference provided step-by-step what, everyone? Demonstrations. So they would say, watch me do it and demonstrate it. Whether it was saying a sound in kindergarten or writing an introduction to an essay in middle school. And they would then follow it, not by independent practice, but by what, everyone? Guided practice. Now, let me just make a little illustration of this. In February, I took a trip with my travel group. Once every 3 years we go somewhere, and we went to Asia, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And one day in Vietnam, we went to the American War Museum, which is now called the Remnant Museum of the Vietnam War. And then in the afternoon, to lighten up, we went to cooking class. And so this is the head chef at the school who has given the lesson. She had a stage, she had a mirror, she was good. And she started by saying, I'm going to have you hold that sentence. We are going to learn how to make salad rolls. Vietnam salad rolls, which, woo, I love. So I was real excited about it. There I'm sitting next to my sister and her husband and then 3 prof friends of mine. And so we're learning it. And she says, well, first you need to get a basket. And I turned to my sister and said, oh God, we'd never use baskets. Okay, and then you take, which she called the rice cake, and you put the rice cake down. And you don't soak it. And I said, oh no, we always soak ours, okay. And you get your hands wet, and then you spread it out, and then you turn it in a third. And then the next thing you do after you turn it in a third is you begin to put in the materials that go in the middle. First you put in the sprouts, but not too many sprouts. And I turned to my sister and said, oh God, I always use too many. And then she said, now put in a row of parsley so it has bright green showing through. And next, and then she was very interesting. She said, next take 1 piece of pork, unless you're a Jew. Okay. Yeah, I'm not a Jew, but there were some. Put it down, but only 1. And then take the shrimp and break the shrimp in half and lay it down so the colors will go to the outside. I said, oh, I just always put mine in whole. Okay, half and half. And then you fold it up again, then you roll it tight, 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 tight. And I said, wow, that was excellent. She did an excellent demonstration. She told us how to do it. She showed us how to do it. It was like perfect. And then she said, now do it on your own. Oh, no. I said, no, no. Because she went right from demonstration to independent practice. And so I said, come here, come here. She came to our table. Now, here is my co-workers at my table, professor for Portland State and brother-in-law, 2 of us. And so she came down, and I said, now, what I want you to do for our table is take us step by step. I want you to guide us through it. And so you now have to do it. So first take a basket. Okay, I'm going to see, I know who's not good at pretending. I've already found you. See, the people who work with kindergarten, they think, oh, good, we can, and then others don't. So, okay. So first we take a basket, then we put our rice cake in it. Okay, good job. And then we dip our hands in water and smooth it out. And we fold it over, what, everyone? A third. And first we lay down our sprouts. Do we have a lot? No. Then we have a row of parsley. And then we put down, that's your juice. And then, next thing we do is we add shrimp. So flip it in half, put it down color side, fold it up again, and then tight. Roll it, tight, tight, tight. And we did beautifully because she guided us. And then she said, can I now leave? And I said, okay. But look at, we then did them on our own, woo, and they actually had people judge them and we won. But it was because I forced her to do, model it, I do it, and then we do it together, then you do it. I do it, we do it, you do it, get your hands ready and go. I do it, we do it, you do it. And so that is what I was saying here. We have demonstration followed by guided practice, not independent work. And we have, like that clarity, clear and concise language. So when we talk about design, this is what we're going to focus on. And we're also going to look at delivery. So let's end here. Let's check over to 17. And so when we looked at the research in terms of both design and delivery, these were the things that delivery made a difference. And that was that we would request from students frequent, what everyone? Responses. That was the other thing about the modeling I just did. Where I had the basically the review with no responses. It was not interactive at all. And is it possible that children are not cognitively present in that situation? Versus the second one where you were definitely had to be present. Right? So we elicit frequent responses and we do what everyone? We monitor those responses. We listen carefully, we look carefully so we can adjust our lesson and also give the students what everyone? Feedback. And we have a pace that is brisk so that the students are like awake. So when we look at delivery, that's what we're going to attend to. But really the big idea here is that the quality of instruction is by far the most critical element that we attend to. And whether I'm a principal or a coach or a teacher or a special ed teacher, I'm going to focus on the quality of instruction. But so often we get taken off on paths that don't make any difference. And we just have to constantly bring ourselves back to say what makes the most difference, and it is the quality of our instruction. So I am going to enjoy very much my days here with you. And honor you for the work that you're doing and the passion that you have for your children. Because really, never in the past has the quality of our instruction made more difference in the lives of children. Because the amount of knowledge that you need to be a competent adult certainly is increasing constantly. And so our teaching makes more and more difference. Okay, so I added some other things at the end here because sometimes we forget that the relationship with our students also makes a difference. And so just as a reminder, the teacher-student relationship has a 0.72 effect size and teacher credibility 0.90. So I want just to, these are the kind of things that we might do to strengthen teacher-student relationship. Teacher credibility, let's end on that on 21. Patty just added this through, it's never been in his work before, but there has been some major studies done, mostly secondary, on credibility. Do I view you as a credible teacher, and thus that's going to have a very positive impact on my achievement. And so it was broken down this way, that for credibility, there had to be trusting what everyone? Relationships. the students had to believe that the teacher, in terms of what they were teaching, had deep confidence, and also had a very, very high energy for that content, had what, everyone? Passion. And so the first one was trusting relationships, that it appears to the students that you care about them as learners and also as people. And that in terms of confidence, that they said, you know your what, everyone, your content, but you're not just know it, you are good at helping them learn it. That was because we have teachers that are maybe like math savants, but they can't like deliver it. And so it was both of those. You know the content and you can teach it. But also, you can manage behavior simultaneously. So all of those were what students would view as a part of credibility. And the last one is that they had passion. Passion for the content, they had passion for their work as a teacher, and they definitely had passion for student learning. So it is the quality of instruction, design, and delivery, plus the teacher-student interactions that make a difference. Well, our last little line here is sort of the motto of the book that we wrote, how well you teach equals how well they learn. And that's sort of my motto in being here. So now we have to transition before Holly gets up and says, stop. If you're staying here, keep this handout and you'll get a second handout.
Don't leave yet.
Don't leave yet, no. If you're coming tomorrow, would you also bring this handout and you'll get an additional one. Holly, turning it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I want to remind you of several things. Please make sure that your folder that has the stipend sign sheet is left in the classroom. Some of you are taking those with you, and Holly's having a difficult time tracking some of them down. Some of you are bringing them to her. She appreciates that, but if she could just keep them in the room, that way she can go and find each school so that that can be accounted for. The second thing is your deliverable for your afternoon planning time is in the Canvas course. And what we're going to ask you to do today, and if you were in the session with Angel, Ben, and I yesterday, you probably have a heads up on this one, is looking at your defined core and what that looks like in your school in terms of your curriculum, your instruction, your environment, and your data evaluation. So there's some templates in there. There's this sheet that explains all that. If you have any questions while you're working on that this afternoon with your team, you can ask Angel, Ben, or I. We'll be happy to come by and help you out. All right? So right now, take about 10 minutes.